everyone, and welcome to season 5 of Behind Your Eyes. And in this fifth episode, my guest is Aline. So, hi Aline, would you like to introduce yourself to everyone?
Hi, everybody. My name is Aline Ram. I am a spiritual guide, healer, writer, and facilitator. And I support people to establish solid foundations for spiritual growth and self-fulfillment.
Mhm.
I think we'll develop further in our conversation, so I'll leave it short for now.
Yeah. Well, I always start the interviews with the same question, which is a sincere, how are you doing?
I'm doing pretty good today. Last week was a little bit of a roller coaster. I had a little bit of a cold that became a ear issue.
Oh.
So now today I finally feel like, oh, I'm not coughing, I'm not sneezing. So it's like
Yeah, you hear it a lot right now.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? Sometimes I know, of course, it is important our mental health and our emotional health, but when we actually get vulnerable in our physical health, it's
Mhm.
that is the one that can never let it slip away, you know? That's where
Yeah.
it begins.
Yeah, exactly. That's always, yeah, we tend to underestimate it. And when we think, oh, it's just a cold, we'll just keep going and going. And then
Yeah,
it can get a lot worse if we're not careful.
exactly.
Yeah. But could you tell me a bit more about like your journey, how you became like the healer and the spiritual guide that you are today?
I have a very unusual journey. I'm actually in this path from a very early age. I started when I was 14, and I started from a place of needing to take care of myself. So I actually could hear entities.
Mhm.
And I was scared. I didn't know what to do with it. Both of my parents are scientists. They have like, it's something they don't even believe in.
Mhm. Yeah.
So I started on this path to take care of myself because I was seeing things that other people could not see and hearing things that other people could not hear, and I was really scared.
Mhm.
So I joined an order called the Rosicrucian Order, which is
Mhm.
actually quite big. And that was the first step for me to understand how this parallel universe works, you know?
Mhm.
So for a very long time, the question driving me was, what is this place? You know, what
Mhm.
is this place? What is
Yeah.
all these things that I can see here? What the hell? Nobody else, like, what the hell? It kind of began from that place. But it was a private journey. I went to business school. I worked with business development. I had a very normal life. And I rarely talked about my spiritual inclinations with people because they are not the most normal ones.
Mhm.
It was much later in my life, when I was almost in my 30s, that I felt I was splitting myself. I was not in a good place. I had a good job. I had a partner. I had a home, my own apartment. You know, everything was
Mhm.
kind of checked all boxes.
Mhm.
But I was feeling like I was splitting myself. I felt like I was not supposed to go to an office and work with business every day. I felt
Mhm.
like I'm kind of in a cage. And then it became like this personal crisis, like
Mhm.
this existential crisis. And
Mhm.
I decided to just quit everything, and I left everything behind and just kept with my spiritual practice. So I had no plan, but I left my job, I left my relationship, I left my home, and it's like, whatever, I'm gonna do whatever feels like my guides, my spiritual guides are telling me to do. And
Mhm.
that's how I started working more with it. At first, it was also just about myself
Mhm.
and my own journey. And at some point, I actually got a message that now was time to start guiding other people.
Mhm.
And the message that I got was, I got like a ray of light. It felt like I had read a whole book in 1 second, and it was telling me everything from
Mhm.
what is my message, what is my method, what I communicate with people, what's the problem that I'm solving, what
Mhm.
is this, like, what are the colors, what is my logo, what is my name. My name had to change. It was just like, okay.
Mhm.
So, and yeah, so it's not a very orthodox, like, it's a bit unorthodox in a way, but
Mhm.
that's my journey.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
took me a lot of time just to be able to talk about it. Yeah.
And that information that you received, like like you said, you had to change so many things and also teach others. And those messages, was that messages from I would like to say from the divine or the universe, or was that more like a strengthening of your intuition, or maybe both?
So One of the things that I talk a lot with my clients and even in my workshops is that we are multi-conscious beings. We have multiple voices inside of us. You don't need to work with spirituality to know that. Like psychology, we internalize our voices of our parents, but we also have voices within our bodies, you know, like we have so much fear in our stomach, and we have instincts doing everything they can do to make sure we're surviving, and we have our mind and we have our heart. And just like that, we have other voices, such as our intuition, which is, but even our intuition, if we actually start going deeper into it, we can start seeing that there are different voices that we put together as intuitions. There is what we can call our higher self, you know, it's just our own voice, but our soul, our being of light talking to us. Then there's our guides, souls that are here helping us, masters that we may have connection with, especially when we are in initiatory lineages. That message that I got saying now your spiritual guide was definitely not me. It was definitely not my higher self, because it was just like, it was, I had very few moments in my life that I feel such a ray of light that there was just nothing I could do against it. It was just like, this is it, and you just go. Yeah. So it's a mixture of an order, and I know when we say order, it feels like heavy, as if somebody's just telling you what to do, but it was an order full of love and full of truth. So it was,
yeah.
yeah.
And do you have like a favorite way of connecting with your guides or communicating with them?
I talk with them all the time, even aloud. So I can be a bit crazy. I can be talking aloud in my house, sometimes asking them questions. But it works very well, especially with simple questions. Whenever I have to do yes, no questions, it's like, okay, yeah. Of course, I do meditations, and I mean, sometimes I don't need to start talking to them, right? Sometimes it's a dialogue, you know, like if you're talking with your friend, sometimes you're the one initiating, and sometimes it's your friend. And it works the same way with guides. Sometimes I want to talk to them, and sometimes they want to talk to me. So
yeah,
I think that the better we work on that relationship, that we show that we know we trust in you. Like, I know you exist. I know you were there. I know you're my friend. And little by little, it becomes a better relationship, and we can talk more easily. Yeah.
Yeah, because recently I've started developing more of that communication as well. And
Cool.
besides, I do meditation and then I ask questions. But recently I've also started to use body dowsing.
Okay.
Instead of dowsing with a pendulum, I use
Okay.
body dowsing. And yeah, it feels like it really strengthens my bond with not only the universe, but with myself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
so
mean, making questions is an amazing resource. You know, it's when we make questions that we're saying that we don't know. And when we don't know, we have space to receive an answer.
yeah.
So that's the first step, right? Emptying ourselves of expectations and just making a question.
Yeah.
And sometimes the question doesn't get as fast as we would like to. Sometimes
Yeah.
it might take a little while. Sometimes we're not supposed to know. But like trust
Yeah.
is a huge thing in this process, for sure.
Yeah, and patience.
They come together, right? Patience
Yeah.
is a result of trust. If you
Yeah.
don't trust, you cannot have patience.
True. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like you said, you as a teenager you could hear non-physical entities, and
Yeah.
like that must have been, of course, really scary. But did you really think there was something? Oh, there must be something mentally wrong with me?
I never thought there was something mentally wrong with me, and that's one of the reasons why I never told my parents. So that was quite harsh in a way, because I've always had a strong intuition, even before. I always knew what I could and could not do. So for my parents, I only had insomnia, because that was the result of it. I couldn't sleep because they would come at night. I would get scared. So my parents already thought that I was I never had this thing when I was a kid of asking my mom to sleep with me. But when I was 13, 14, I was listening to voices and I couldn't be in a room alone because I would hear them. So for my parents, I was just this weird kid that needed company. But that is what I knew I could say, because even saying to my parents that I had insomnia, the result was that they took me to the doctor and I took very hard medication, very hardcore medication to start falling asleep.
Oh, wow.
So that was the result. So I don't even want to know what they would have done had I told them I was listening. Hear you voices. I'll probably have to really go to a psychiatrist or something. And I don't mean that in any bad way. I'm pretty sure my parents love me very much and were trying to help me. And I do believe we're all good people. It's just that because our understanding of what is good can shift, we can actually hurt. So yeah, that was what happened to me. I was really scared. I couldn't sleep. But I also got to join my first school from a very early age because of that. It also put me in my path. And that is the funny part of it, because when I tell people that I've been initiated in many different mystery schools, people look at me as like, what? Like, people think this doesn't really exist, you know, but the world is full of mystery schools. And I never had to look for them. They always found me, which I find very magical in a way. So it was a sad incident and I was scared, but it also made sure I got where I needed to go.
Even the bad parts in life have a way of ending up leading you to where you need to be.
If we listen to our intuition, yes. Because many times people get so upset that they don't trust themselves anymore. And then the bad things don't take anywhere. So of course, if we need to keep some kind of hope and some kind of faith.
And you said that in your early 30s, your expansion catalyzed. And how did that express itself in you and in your life?
It just became this clarity. It was a lot of clarity. Became sharper. I could communicate so much more clear. I always felt that everywhere I went, there was a whole army with me, and I still feel that. I really feel I'm never alone. Even when I am physically isolated from people, I feel there's an army with me wherever I go. And then I'm very well taken care of. But more than that, I feel it's about knowing who we are. And that is the real catalyzation, because the more we understand who we really are and embody our divinity and our power, the more everything is just part of a bigger process of becoming gods, because that's what I believe, that we are on a spiritual journey, ultimately becoming gods and learning to master ourselves and our minds and our hearts and our powers, and understanding how all of this work. And the more we understand who we really are, and not only on the mental level, because I know a lot of people who tell me I'm God, but don't really behave like God. So it doesn't really work like that. We really need to embody and anchor that energy within us. So there are these different things, this feeling supported, this feeling absolutely supported. We're not alone. Feeling that we leads to joy. Because at the end of the day, we're here just to be. And I always tell people, your purpose is to be yourself. And when you know who you are, you don't have to ask yourself your purpose, because it's just a natural expression of your being.
It sounds easy though, you know, just be who you are, discover who you are. But of course, it can take a whole lifetime to.
It can take many lifetimes. It's not an easy job. To become who we are, we need to become everything we're not. And letting go of all wounds, all identifications, all the fears. It's the biggest work there is to do. It is, and it's very painful. I'm not gonna lie. It's a big work.
And you say on your website that understanding how energy works and serving spirit and not falling in illusions and traps is crucial. How so?
Many people working with spirituality don't really understand how energy works, which I think is actually dangerous. What happens today is that, in a way, it's beautiful that everybody can start on their journey so easily. There's so many things accessible. Everything has good sides and bad sides. The bad side is that there are too many people who haven't really understood anything and are taking care of other people's energy. It's not because it's energy that is good. Everything can be anything. It's not because you can feel something that it's healing you. It can be just energy manipulation. So there's a lot of naivety.
Yeah.
And I really don't understand why we are very clear that we're talking about politics, right? And then somebody gives an opinion, uninformed opinion about something. And it's very easy for us to say, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Spirituality, we're talking about something that nobody actually sees. And a lot of people are just spreading rumors of things they don't know anything about. This is dangerous. This is energy. This hurts people. And what one person does in their own field, it's one thing. But the moment that we start guiding people or start being healers and responsible for others people's growth, whole other thing. We need to be responsible and know how energy works, understand what spirits want from us, not from our ego and cutting illusions of how much of a healer we think we are. Humbleness every single step.
And groundedness maybe as well.
Super crucial. That is another thing. Many people are too much up here, but all this energy we receive from spirit, it's supposed to be grounded on earth through us. We are the vessel. It is through the alchemy that happens in us, in our actions, that this divine energy gets to come down and shift reality. People who are not grounded are having a fun time up here, but they're not really doing spiritual work, because the spiritual work is supposed to change reality. And we change reality through physicality and through our actions.
Yeah. We're basically just the funnel for the message.
Exactly.
And through your spiritual journey, which of course is still ongoing because it never ends, but what was your main struggle, if you had one, of course?
Well, my journey did start early, and as I said, for a long time it was all about what the hell is this place, which means that for a long time spirituality was very focused in mysticism and magic. And I couldn't, for a long time in my life, relate that to personal development and to loving more and to be more connected. I only saw this mystical facet, and I really needed to, have a breakdown of like, my life is not okay, nothing is working. I don't want to be in this job. This relationship is supposed to be good, but it's not. Like, I had to have this moment of, even though I was so spiritual, right? So that for me was a massive moment and a massive struggle of, I understand this so well and why I'm not well. And really adding this part of the more soft part of the spirituality and the more soft part of personal growth to it. And by soft, I don't mean in any way that is easy. It's just in my mind back then, it was all about like this mixture between mysticism and power. And it took me quite a long time to put it all together, this spirituality and service to light with my own personal development and with magic and pure energy work. Because some of the healing modalities that I do are very unusual. They are more a work of magic than anything else. So putting them together.
And you teach the foundations of spiritual growth and soul fulfillment. And what to you is like at the core or at the essence or the heart of your teachings?
Solid foundations are not easy. Solid foundations are about coherence, cohesion, authority. Solid foundations are the things we know. And because we think we know, we end up leaving them behind. So why can we not be more joyful? Why can't we breathe more deeply? Why can't we be more present? Why can't we be more loving? All these things that we jump to the next step, right? Nobody wants to do the same breath work every day for a month, but deep down, that's what we need, because solid foundations have so many different layers. And the more we develop as people, the more we can see these different facets of the teachings. So my solid foundations are presence, clarity, joy, connection, and devotion. And I see this as a house. Like, it's not really square. It has like the little roof there on top. But the more you work on them, the more the house expands,
Mhm.
because the core, the absolute core is invisible as
Mhm.
inside the house, and is spaciousness.
Mhm.
A spacious life is a life that we can be detached from our beliefs and
Mhm.
really open to receive anything. And that's why purification is so important in spiritual practice. Every single lineage talks about letting go and purifying ourselves, and that spirituality is a work of clearing, of cleaning ourselves, you know, of everything that doesn't really belong here that we think it does. So my absolute core is creating spaciousness.
Mhm.
It's just not that easy to create spaciousness, and
Mhm.
that's why we have all these other pillars to help us out.
Yeah. But like you said, it's interesting that why don't we breathe a bit deeper or experience more joy? And is that because we just don't pay attention to it, or do we take it for granted?
Of course, there's different sides to it, and I'm gonna, in a way, simplify most. And of course, there's the cultural aspect. We are in an environment that it is how it is, and we were born like this, and we just keep following. It takes, and if it wasn't this, it would be something else, right? I feel like there's always some culture. And part of the spiritual progress is always to detach ourselves from culture. It's always going to be whatever the culture is, even if it's a good culture, we still have to question ourselves. What is me and what is just imposed by a social order? That's so there is the cultural aspect. But even as we start freeing ourselves, one huge problem, I don't like the word problem. Let's use the word challenge. A huge challenge that I see in our society right now is that we really resist life. We don't take enough life inside of us. How much joy can we actually take in?
Yeah.
It's almost we're afraid of living and breathing and joy and all those things. They are about receiving life. So it can touch in so many different aspects. We can go to feelings of self-love and worthiness for sure. But it's also about energy management, because both life and pain, they are a lot of energy. And we need to know how to stay with that energy, circulate it, allow ourselves to feel it, allow it to exist, and then let it go. So just as we avoid suffering, we avoid too much joy as well. So we stay in a safe line of energy that we can handle.
Yeah.
The work itself is to expand our capacity of handling energy, whatever energy it is. And this goes in different ways. One is taking care of a nervous system, because for some people, when they feel more energy, whatever energy that is, their nervous system gets triggered. So they need to learn how to relax. And the second thing is then activating, how to work with activation techniques. So yeah, we are very bad at managing any type of energy, whatever energy that is.
Yeah. And what is your favorite way to manage your energy?
I have so many. So that's the thing. I am a spiritual guide, so I have a crazy toolbox. And I receive new practices all the time from spirit, depending on what people need. But I like to start with very simple ways and ways that everybody can do, because I do think that not everything has to be complex. And coming to basics, the ability to relax is crucial, because when we create any kind of tension in our bodies, we're not allowing the energy to flow, which means that not only are we not feeling great or not feeling terrible, but we are not allowing the energy to circulate. So the energy stays stagnated within us. And this becomes something we have to heal after. You know, it's a memory in our muscles. So normally I suggest people to start by relaxing, scanning their bodies multiple times a day for 2 minutes, and just like, because we carry so many unconscious tension. It's crazy. Like it can be just the shoulders, like the regular culprit. But if we start paying attention to our legs as we sit down, we're going to see that maybe they're not just heavy against the floor. We are kind of holding them up. How can we possibly ground ourselves when we cannot even let things fall and drop? That is the first step of grounding. That is the first step of relaxation. That's the first step of being present, is allowing the body to just drop.
Yeah.
And at the same time, keeping good posture, because it's the same thing when we have, yeah, I was speaking like this now as well. I'm actually a yoga teacher, so I tend to be better at this, but I slip sometimes. But it's the same thing with posture, because when we are not in good posture is creating space. Space allows energy to flow. When you are contracted, energy cannot move and it stays in this place here or there. So those are two simple ways to start having space for energy to move. Because if we don't have posture and we don't with good posture and we don't have relaxation, we cannot even take energy. There's not even a chance to have energy to manage. So yeah.
And if you could talk to a younger version of yourself, what would you tell her?
I would tell her that she doesn't need to go to business school. Yeah, no, I just feel like when I look back at I think we all have that, right? Of things that we took from our parents without realizing. So many things that we take so long in this journey just to heal from our own parents that, again, they did the absolutely best and they did it with love, but they have their issues themselves and our capacity to internalize things. So I would have said taking better care of, like, I had a lot of frustration and a lot of the need of career accomplishment very early in life that it took from fears that my father carried. So for a long time, I had fears that were not mine, and it took me a long time to see that. So I will definitely show her that she could have chosen more love instead of the fear that was not even her fear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's sometimes hard to recognize, because from a young age you get that fear from your parents, so it's hard. You think it's your own mostly.
Yes.
Yeah, I think a lot of people have that problem, if you can call it that.
Absolutely, and this is a massive amount of healing, a healing from our own parent source, be it fear, be it sadness, be it how they related to work. I've been seeing this so much. So many people have issues with work and wounds related work. They don't want to work no matter what. And spiritual growth and personal development are a lot of work. We can only do this kind of things if we are willing to do the work, you know?
Yeah.
And the source that we're carrying, the wounds, are not ours. It's because we grew up with parents who hustle so much, who were having a hard time, who didn't like their job, who didn't have a bigger sense of purpose, who were doing everything for their families, you know. So it's a huge thing for us when we talk about doing something with love, when we grew up seeing people that didn't love what they did. It's a huge wound.
Yeah. It's for me it's similar, because also I have amazing parents. I wouldn't want any other human beings to be my parents, but I started to notice the patterns in me and my mom, that we are so similar, that I have taken on some of her anxieties and made them my own. So I was like, okay, wait, I should have a lot more boundaries, because my mom was not very good at creating or setting boundaries for herself. And I started to notice that pattern in myself as well. So I'm learning to set more boundaries and have my energy be my own and not just take on everyone else's because of lack of boundaries. So yeah, it's a long process, but I find it a very interesting one as well.
Yeah, and I mean, we all have those things, and it begins with self-awareness, right? So it's beautiful that you can see it and then you can acknowledge it. That's how you can begin, because then we can have some self-compassion as well, right? And like really understand what we're doing. So many people are just repeating patterns, and it takes quite a bit of courage to go and look at it and do what we can to heal it. So that's for sure. And there's also so many layers, because it might take us so long to heal this from our parents, and then 1 year after we're going to see another thing, and then another thing,
another thing pops up, and you're like, oh wait, is this mine or is this someone else's? Or it's fascinating journey, I think.
Yeah, it's a whole process of unbecoming and becoming how we are not. And that's how we get to
Yeah,
become who we are.
yeah.
Uh,
And what is the best advice that you were ever given?
the best advice that I was ever given was actually a quote from a book. And
Mm.
I don't even remember the proper quote,
Yeah.
but I think it's from Don Quixote. And
Mm.
it goes like this: do everything as if it was everything that mattered, and
Mm.
do it knowing it doesn't matter at all.
Oh.
Which is this, to coexist in both realities and give ourselves away and surrender to what we do and what we love, but knowing that at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Mhm.
So the ability to give everything with God,
Mhm.
but in that level of lightness and an
Oh,
attachment,
yeah.
I think it's a beautiful advice.
Oh, definitely, definitely. And it's something I still have to learn, that I know for sure.
That's a hard lesson. Take your
Yeah.
time.
And well, my final question is also always the same one, and that is, when are you at your happiest?
I am at my happiest. Let me see. I love singing and I'm playing the guitar right now. So for me, I'm at my happiest with music.
Mhm.
Music is a major part of me, and I catch myself all the time singing alone or singing a song in my mind. And yeah,
Yeah.
I am in my happiest when there's music,
Mm.
even if it only inside my brain.
Mm. Well, thank you so much for our interview and for this wonderful conversation.
Thank you. Thank you for talking to me today. I appreciate it. I had a beautiful time.
Thank you.